See everybody this morning. We're in James, the book that written by our Lord's half-brother, we believe. We're particularly down to verse 11 of chapter 4, and we're going to pick up there again. Andy did cover this last week to some extent, but we're going to repeat a little bit of that. So we've got, do not speak evil of one another, brethren. He who speaks evil of a brother and judges his brother speaks evil of the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. All right, let's slow down just a minute. Literally translated, this would be stop speaking evil of one another. And it's an imperative. That is, it's a command. They have a problem. They're talking bad about each other. Now, who is talking bad about who? We don't know for sure. Is it possible that some of the better off brethren are talking bad about the poor brethren? Well, that's possible, given what we've already seen in this book. But whatever the case may be, he says, stop it. Stop doing that. And the words that he uses there, speaking evil of one another, are actually, that same word is used in other places. It describes a defamation of character. So look at 2 Corinthians, for example, chapter 12. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, and we're going to try to pick up at verse 20 there. For I fear lest when I come I shall not find you such as I wish, and that I shall be found by you such as you do not wish. Lest there be contentions, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, backbitings, whisperings, conceits, tumults. So backbitings, that's that evil speaking that we're talking about. Now look at 1 Peter. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 1. The Apostle Peter uses the same word. If I can get my page to turn. So we've got this. Therefore, laying aside all malice, all deceit, hypocrisy, envy, and all evil speaking. There it comes again. So this was not just a problem with the brethren that James was addressing. It's a problem in Corinth. It's a problem in the scattered Christians that Peter writes to, the diaspora, as they're called. It just means the spread out, the thrown out in the distance, because they've been driven out by, of course, by persecution. In the persecution of Paul that he carried out after the death of Stephen and things like that. So stop that kind of thing. Why do we need to do that? It's because of the destructive nature of it. Gossipers, backbiters, are people that defame other people's character. Now, when we say defame their character, let's think about this. If somebody's done something wrong, you could say, well, I'm just reporting the truth. Yeah, but does it destroy their reputation with other people? Wouldn't it be better to go to that individual and try to get them to change? Get them to modify their behavior? Why do we need to report it to other folks? Gossip is not always false. And there's our problem. We think it's always false. No. It's anytime you speak bad about a brother or a sister. That's gossip. Now, to anybody except the brother or sister. If you got a problem with what your brother or your sister is doing or saying or whatever, you need to talk to them. And we've got biblical injunctions about that we could certainly pick up on. The law of love would require us to do quite the contrary. And so he talks about that. You judge the law. And somebody might be thinking, what, the law of Moses? No, I don't think so. I think instead we're talking about the law of Jesus. And what was his law? Well, the command that he presented in John chapter 13, verses 34 and 35 was that you love one another as I have loved you, so ought you also to love one another. By this shall all men know that you're my disciples, if you have love one for another. Is it the loving thing to do to talk bad about your brother? Is it the loving thing to do to talk bad about your sister? That's a pretty easy answer, don't you think? I think it's just as evident and obvious as it can be. And so don't judge the law. And when you think about it, in Matthew chapter 7, verse 12, we've got that famous passage that all of us are accustomed to. We usually call that the golden rule. Therefore, whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets. We've got to treat others like we want to be treated. Well, he goes ahead in that same verse, and he's talking about a harsh judgment of motives. And here's something I think we need to realize. Many of the fights that we get into with people are not over what they did. It's over what we think they intended. We accuse them of it. You meant to hurt me. Well, how do you know that? I can say, you hurt me. That's what I feel. And by the way, that's another thing that would be a key if you want to develop good communication skills. You could say, I felt hurt by that. See, because then you've taken the total thing and put it on yourself. Instead of, you meant to hurt me. Quite a different thing to say in that particular case. So let's be careful about what we do. Remember that loving God is demonstrated by love for brethren. Look at 1 John, if you would. We're going to look at 1 John chapter 2. And we're going to particularly pick up verses 10 and 11 there for this particular moment. And here's what he has to say. He who loves his brother abides in the light, and there's no cause for stumbling in him. But he who hates his brother is in darkness and walks in darkness and does not know where he's going, because the darkness has blinded his eyes. Now go on down, chapter 4, same book, verse 20. If someone says, I love God, and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen, how can he love God whom he has not seen? And this is a commandment we have from him, that he who loves God must love his brother also. Whoever believes that Jesus is the Christ is born of God, and everyone who loves him who begot also loves him who is begotten of him. Okay, who would be the begotten of him? Who's that describing? All Christians. We're born again, begotten. So we're begotten or born of him. If you love Jesus, you're going to love people that are born of Jesus. See, that's the point that John is making. And James is really in total harmony with John on that particular thing. So pick up now at verse 12, where he goes on to say in James chapter 4, there is one lawgiver who is able to save and to destroy. Who are you to judge another? Now, who is the lawgiver? Well, Jesus, remember, before he ascended into heaven, said, all authority has been given unto me in heaven and on earth. So he has the authority to issue commands, and he did do that. Now, look at John chapter 12. Of course, this predates obviously his ascension, but in John chapter 12, we got Jesus talking about these matters, the judgment and what's going to be involved in the judgment. And as he does that, he lays out some very interesting points for us to consider. So look at John chapter 12. I think the rain's got my fingers not liking to work today. I'm working on it though. John 12, and we want to pick up particularly at verse 48 of John chapter 12. He who rejects me does not receive my words, has that which judges him. The word that I've spoken will judge him in the last day. And so the standard of judgment is the word that Jesus spoke. And then he says, for I have not spoken on my own authority, but the Father who sent me gave me a command, what I should say and what I should speak. And I know that his command is everlasting life. Therefore, whatever I speak, just as the Father has told me, so I speak. Now, we do need to realize that we'll be judged on based on the words of Jesus. Now, go back to chapter 5 of the book of John, where Jesus again is speaking. Listen to what he says this time. John chapter 5, we're going to pick up verse 26 and 27. For as the Father has life in himself, so he has granted the Son to have life in himself, and has given him authority to execute judgment also, because he is the Son of Man. So there's one lawgiver. Who's that? God, and then Jesus delivered it. So we say, if you want to say Jesus, I'm okay with that. If you want to say God, I'm okay with that too. Either way, it works. And then who is the one judge? Jesus is the one judge. I had a lengthy discussion yesterday with someone that's struggling right now, not in their own life, but family members are making accusations, and the accusations basically boils down to this: you condemn our relatives that are dead. You say that they're going to spend eternity lost. And I just spoke up, and by the way, I know this person. I think they already knew this, but I wanted to repeat it. I just spoke up and said, that's not my job. I don't get to judge. Now, are they going to be condemned? Well, it's possible. But on the other hand, I could say it this way. I may be as well. You say, going to be condemned. I'm going to be judged by the same judge they're going to be judged by. And so it's not my place, nor is it your place, to judge a brother or a sister. That's not my role, not your role. Now, the one thing we got to be careful of here is to differentiate. There's a difference between judging and fruit inspection. Judging is condemnation, saying you will be lost, or even worse, some in modern era say you are. They'll literally direct you to where you're supposed to go, and I can't even repeat it. I can't say that, okay? But they will do that. But judging is condemning someone. It's saying that you will be lost, that kind of a thing. But fruit inspection is quite different. Fruit inspection is where we can say, what you did there was wrong. Now, we live in a society today that doesn't like that. You're supposed to let everybody just do their own thing and never tell anybody they're wrong. Well, how does that work out for you at the stop sign when the other guy decides that it's okay to just run the stop sign? How does that work out? I can tell you what it did to one of my vehicles not too many years ago. It teared up pretty good. And the policeman had the audacity to tell the guy he was wrong. Well, girl in this case, but still, he told her she was wrong. She's in the wrong. She ran the stop sign, and all the witnesses said so. So we can judge fruit. We can know when somebody runs the stop sign and that's wrong. That's just an example, but it works within Scripture as well. But we can't be the judge. We can't decide where someone's going to spend eternity. The truth is, when I judge somebody, what am I doing? I'm usurping Jesus' authority. I'm playing his role. And that's not my job, to play the role of Jesus. So, realizing that truth, we need to quit acting as judges to our brethren, and instead we need to love them, because that's really the law. And if you love them, you see them do something wrong, you want to help them change. And if they love you and they see you do something wrong, I want to help you change too. It works all the way around. All right, verse 13 is probably more familiar than what we've dealt with so far. Here's what it says. Come now, you who say today or tomorrow we'll go to such and such a city, spend a year there, buy and sell, and make a profit. Come now. The easiest example of somebody that I know that did something like this, in days gone by, V.E. Howard was a tremendous radio preacher. He's also tremendous in person. But he preached for the International Gospel Hour. And he was on radio literally all over the world, certainly all over the United States. And he'd be teaching along in a particular lesson, and then all of a sudden he would pause and he would say, "Are you listening?" And he'd hold just a minute, really a few seconds. To a speaker, it feels like a minute. But he'd hold a few seconds to let that soak in, and that draws people's attention right back to him. So here comes James, and that's effectively what he's doing. Come now. Now, you may hear an older person sometime, or you may have grown up hearing them say, come now. And they're trying to make you slow down and think about what you just said, is what they're saying. Well, in this case, he's trying to make them slow down and particularly think about what they have been saying. Same thing. By the way, again, this word is an imperative. He's commanding them, stop and think about what you're saying. And watch this. Think about it just a minute. These are people who are making plans, but at the end of the verse, what does he say? You don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. Okay. I think I can ask for a show of hands here, and nobody's going to be embarrassed because we're all going to raise our hands. Have you ever said, tomorrow I'm going to do something, and you were not able to do it? Raise your hand. We've all done it, haven't we? Again, I think I said this maybe Wednesday night in a different class, but I've told my children numerous times, life doesn't go according to your plan. Teresa and I had airplane tickets last year. April the 24th, we were supposed to fly to Knoxville. We flew, I guess, in the sense of the word. The ambulance flew to the hospital, and that's where we went. No flying was done on April the 24th, by us. Was that the plan? Yeah, we had everything laid out. We knew where we were going to stay. We knew what we were going to be doing for the next few days. We didn't get to do any of that stuff. And you've been in the same situation. Hopefully Ann Alford won't get mad at me. She had plans too, but she drank too much water. Did you know you can drink too much water? Yeah, she knows you can drink too much water, don't you? And when you drink too much water, it drains out your electrolytes, and you got problems. It took a while to get straight, didn't it? Was that the plan? No, that wasn't the plan. No, that wasn't her plan at all. We've talked numerous times about that. Well, she's not alone. I can illustrate my own life many times. Same idea. We make plans, but we don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. My favorite thing to say about the weather is, they'll say, what's the weather supposed to be tomorrow? I'll say, well, it's so-and-so, and then I always conclude it with, if they get it right. If they get it right. They don't know. We don't know. Can things change? Yeah, they can. And this is what James is warning about. Slow down, think about it. You're making plans as if you controlled life. And you don't control life. I don't control life. None of us is able to control life. So what are they doing? They're making plans without including God in the plans. And that's the danger that is involved here. So pick up at the next verse, 14. Whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away. We dealt with some of this last week in the sermon, but I want us to observe, Proverbs chapter 27, for example. Proverbs 27. And we're going to pick up particularly verse 1 there. Here's what the wise man said. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring forth. How many of you, I'm not asking for a show of hands here, but I expect all of us could raise them. How many of you know somebody, maybe even very young, who was here today, gone tomorrow? Preachers spend a lot of time at funeral homes and graveyards. And I can assure you, I've buried people of just about every age you could imagine. Young people don't think they're going to die. Believe me, they do. They do. Older people, well, we know death's coming, but how many of us think it's today? I know I'm closer to death now than I ever was before, but am I going to die today? Well, I'm not planning on it. That's the thing. See, but we don't know, do we? We don't know what's going to happen with us, and that's very, very important to see. Life on earth is not permanent. It is appointed unto man once to die, and after this, the judgment. Everybody has an appointment with death. When's it going to be? Well, I don't know. No, I don't have any idea. When's my death going to be? When's yours going to be? I don't know. There's no way for us to know. James says that life is like, and he uses a word, it's hard. It's translated various ways, depends on what translation you're looking at. He says, what is your life is even a vapor that appears for a little time, then vanishes away. The word vapor could be a mist or a puff of smoke. It's kind of like the morning fog. We've talked about that before. This part of the world, we can get a fog that's so thick you think it's never going to go away. You get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and you can't see the driveway, and it's just right out the window almost. Something like that. It looks permanent, doesn't it? But by usually 9 o'clock, it's pretty much gone, isn't it? So it's just very fleeting. What about life? How quickly does life go by? Any of the older folks want to testify? I'm in that group, so I'm not insulting anybody. Anybody want to testify? What's life like? The older you get, the faster it goes. How could it possibly be 2024? Seems like yesterday was 2020 or 2000 or whatever. It just flies. It just flies by. And you get to, and I've talked to people in their 90s and even in their hundreds who they'll say something like, well, it seems like yesterday I was graduating from high school. Like yesterday. It just passes so quickly. Now, I know young people don't feel that way. I understand that. But most everybody in this class understands. It goes quickly, very, very quickly. By the way, this is one reason that I encourage younger folks, do everything you can do when your children are at home to enjoy your children. Because I promise you, the day's going to come when that's gone. You're not going to have that anymore. So enjoy them while you can. I played tennis in college and didn't think I'd ever play again, really. But when my children got to a certain age, they both wanted to play high school tennis, and so I coached the tennis team. Why? Mostly to be with my kids, just to be out there and enjoy it, watching them grow and develop and things like that. And we had fun together. Nathan, to this day, doesn't know how to beat me in tennis, by the way. And he's had more lessons than I ever had. He's really good, but not against Dad, because Dad's old and he uses old man's tricks in play. But I enjoy that. I enjoy being with them and playing with them. And if Tabitha had a concert, I went to the concert. Wouldn't you? If they had a taekwondo competition, I was there. It didn't matter whether they won or they lost. I just wanted to be there and be a part of it. And I've done the same with some of your children. I've gone to ball games and things like that. I want to be with them. We don't have much time. Enjoy it while you got it. Okay, that's James' instruction, but it goes way deeper than that. We're talking about spiritual matters. So pick up at verse 15 when he says, instead you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we shall live and do this or that. Around the office, I'll tell Mitzi what the plan is for tomorrow. And as I'm going out the door, I'll say, okay, here's the plan. I may have to, Teresa may have a doctor's appointment or whatever. And I'll say, this is the plan. And then I'll say, if the Lord wills. Of course, then she says, and the creek don't rise. And she's talking about the water, and I'm talking about an Indian nation. But anyway, it's, but I don't think the creek are going to rise, okay? I think that's over. But at any rate, we got to include God in our plans. See, now when people ask me, now I've been doing this for years, if they say, will you come hold a gospel meeting? Will you come speak for our summer series or whatever? I'll say, yes, if the Lord wills. I've had to cancel two meetings, now 3. I forgot about last year, but where, the plan was to go do a meeting, but Teresa was in the hospital or in rehab, something like that. I'm not going. I'm not going to do that. I just call them and tell them, I can't come. I don't know about saying that the Lord didn't will. I don't know what the Lord willed or didn't will, but I know what happened. And that's what we need to think about. Anybody else have a comment?
I was going to say, this is one of those times that you read one verse and you just scratch your head. Don't make plans. Well, you got to make plans. If you go on and read it, there's a very good explanation. Like you say, God's got to be within your planning. And when I first read that and stop, it gives me pause. You mean I'm not supposed to plan what I'm supposed to do tomorrow? But that's not what he's saying. He's saying, make sure God is in your plan.
Okay, so let me try to encapsulate. Yeah, exactly. Okay, what Andy's saying is this. It looks like James is saying, don't make plans. But you got to read the whole context. He doesn't really say don't make plans. He just says, be sure to incorporate God in your plans. Be sure to say, if the Lord wills, this is what I'm going to do. The Lord expects us to do a certain amount of planning. There's no doubt about that. If you don't plan to plant a crop, you will not have a harvest. Is that true? So far as everybody knows, if you don't plant those tomato plants, and we've got fellas in here, Malcolm, you about got your tomato plants ready to go? Yeah, I figured. Sometimes Malcolm's got them in the garage right now or something. Anyway, even though we're going to have cold weather, they'll survive the garage, something like that. Yes, ma'am. Okay, that's the other side of this that's being brought out. Anita's saying, some people say, well, why should I make any plans? God's in control. Well, it doesn't say that either, does it? We make plans, but we include God in the plans, and we're willing to submit to Him. It reminds us of the Lord. What was His plan? Was His plan, in one way you could say, yes, His plan was to go to the cross. He talked about it His whole time with the disciples on earth. But in another way, when you get to the Garden of Gethsemane, it's kind of like, that's not really in my plans. I'm going to do it if that's what you want, but it's not my plans. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Always say if God wills, if the Lord wills. That's right. That's right. Make your plan, but always submit to God's will. That's a good way to put it.
Having to say, if the Lord's will, I think that's a good habit, but it's a mindset. I wake up every day with the mindset of, I want to glorify God. That what I'm saying, put God in your life.
Yeah.
It's not. You can say, oh, well, you want to if the Lord's will, and not really be.
Okay.
What I'm saying? It's more of an internal mindset.
Okay, Andy's point is, this is not really just a saying it kind of a thing. It's more nearly an attitude of life. So you may never vocalize it, or very rarely vocalize it, but you got to have the attitude of life. This is a plan, but I'm subject to God's will. That's the attitude that goes with it. Yes, W.E. Okay. Yeah, W.E. saying for that reason, be flexible. Be ready to roll with the punches, the way we used to say it. Just go whichever way it goes. Okay. The truth is that my entire life is dependent on God, and so is yours. Look at Acts chapter 17. This is Paul on Mars Hill, and he makes that abundantly clear as he talks to them. We're going to pick up at verse 24. Remember, he's up there with the philosophers of his day, the Epicureans and the Stoics, and here's what he says to them. Verse 24, God who made the world and everything in it, since he is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor is he worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, since he gives to all life and breath and all things. And he's made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on the face of the earth, and has determined their preappointed times and the boundaries of their dwellings, so that they should seek the Lord in the hope that they might grope for him and find him, though he's not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being, as also some of your own poets have said, for we are also his offspring. So, my very life depends on God. Your life depends on God. I'm alive today because God is sustaining me. You're alive today because God's sustaining you. That's the key, it seems to me, to what James is laying out here. So let's go to verse 16 here. But now you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. And first of all, what were they boasting about? Yes, ma'am. Do I now? There you go. That's a good way to put it. They thought they were in charge. They're boasting about, this is what I plan to do. This, and this. So I'm laying it all out in front of you. This is what I'm going to do. No, can't do that. What do you know about this word boast? I think I've got it on the screen. Sometimes I make notes that go beyond what's on the screen because I turned that in early. But this word boast is only used in one other place in the New Testament. It's the word translated boast here is found in 1 John chapter 2, where John says, love not the world, neither things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. The world passeth away, and the lust thereof, but he that doeth the will of God abideth forever. So watch it. Pride of life is the same word. Pride of life. And what is it? Julia said it pretty well. I'm in control of my life. I'm making my decision. No. That's what they boasted. That's what they acted like. But it doesn't work that way, does it? No. Honestly, how many of us in our youth had a plan to be here now? Did you have other plans? Well, most of us could say, yeah. I'll never forget, Dale Ledbetter and I would sit for coffee on Fridays sometimes. He'd invite me. He's working on his reports for his company. And he would ask me, why'd you come to Mississippi? He said, it's hard to get guys to come to Mississippi to be managers in my company, even though it'd be an increase for them. Why'd you come to Mississippi? I said, well, good people here, good church here. Well, that's why we came to Mississippi. We like it. That's why we came. But now, had you asked me, ask Nathan sometime when you see him. He finally came to me when we moved here. He said, Dad, don't say anymore that you're going to retire here or that you're just going to die here. Don't say that. He said, you've said that the last 3 places you've lived. Well, Is that not true of most of us? Aren't we, hadn't we laid out plans that then they didn't work? It didn't go that way. Again, we're not in charge. So pride of life, very important to see that. By the way, I will say this, is some boasting good? There's bad boasting, we've already seen that, but is some boasting good? Yes, it is. Let's look at a few passages. Look at 1 Thessalonians. This is Paul. And boy, you talk about a church that went through the mill. These people went through the mill at Thessalonica. 1 Thessalonians 2, we're going to pick up at 19 and 20. For what is our hope or joy or crown of rejoicing? Is it not even you in the presence of our Lord Jesus Christ at his coming? For you are our glory and joy. Did he boast? Did he glory in something? Yeah, in the Christian life and faith of the Thessalonian brethren. He boasted in them. And I don't tell you all this very often, but when I'm away from here, people ask where I am, I'll tell them I'm at one of the best churches in the brotherhood. I'm dead serious. And I've been to a few of them in my lifetime. I've been to a few. This is a very, very good church. And I'm proud of you all. But that pride can only be valuable if we're all living up to what we're supposed to. Really my pride is a human observation. We want to be sure that God has the same pride. Look at 2 Thessalonians, where he continues. Remember, they're still in trouble. They're still going through hard times. And so in 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 4, he says, so that we ourselves boast of you among the churches of God for your patience and faith and all your persecutions and tribulations that you endure. But the word that he uses for tribulations there is a word that basically describes like you're squeezing the juice out of a grape. Have you ever felt like that life was squeezing the juice out of you, so to speak? Well, these people were going through it. They were being persecuted. And that word means to pursue, like you chase down an animal, to kill it. That's what it means. And then they were being squeezed out like a grape. And he said, I boast about you. What? Your patience in going through all of that. The way that you live with it. That's what he boasted about. And then we got Galatians chapter 6. Very interesting book because it deals with their struggles that in part were motivated, it appears almost to me, by Peter. And he challenged Peter because of that kind of thing. But Galatians chapter 6, verse 14, but God forbid that I should boast except in the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, by whom the world has been crucified to me and I to the world. Every Christian ought to be able to boast in Jesus Christ. That's where the real boast is. Because in him and through him, we can be freed from our sins. So, we can't glory, we cannot boast in our own self-sufficiency. We can't act like we're in charge. We're not. But we can boast in Jesus and the brethren, if they're worthy of that. And when Paul wrote about the Thessalonian brethren, they were. All right, verse 17. Therefore, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. Okay. When you make your plans for tomorrow, is good in your plans. See, one way we acknowledge that God is in charge of our lives is that we incorporate the actions of God into our daily lives. So you can let things be the Lord's will by being a good example wherever you go. You can plan on it. How am I going to be a good example? We got a fella here that in a few days or weeks is scheduled to go to I think, Illinois for training. I think that if I remember correctly. May not. Maybe it may be Missouri, but those two places are not near as good as Mississippi anyway. So, but he's going to Missouri for training, I think, if I remember correctly. But the first thing he asked me, I've got to go to Missouri for training. Here's where I'm going to be. Do you know a good church there? Well, then he's planning to keep God in the plans, isn't he? Got to go for training, and not going to avoid that if you're going to keep your job. But is there a good church there? Some of you will come to me or to Derek or to Mitzi and you'll say, we're going to be on vacation, we're going to be in so-and-so. Is there a good church over there? What do you recommend over that way? I'm in different groups with preachers, and it's not uncommon for a preacher to say, one of our members is moving to so-and-so city. Do you know any good churches there? That's including God in your plans, making him a part of it. Now, let me ask you something about judgment. If you or I are lost, why are we going to be lost? Failure to obey. Now, see, that was a little bit different. You know what most people usually answer? And by the way, you're right. I'm not challenging Terry on his rightness or wrongness. Usually we answer, if I go to hell, I'll go because of the bad things I did. Because most of us say that's what you hear most of the time, right? Bad things I did. But James says, you will be lost because of the good things you did not do. Now think about the judgment scene in Matthew chapter 25. And here the Lord divides sheep from goats, right hand, left hand. And to the people on the right hand, what is it that he mentions that's going to cause them to receive a reward? I was hungry, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was naked, and you clothed me. Sick, and in prison, and you visited me. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Those are all active. There's not a you did this wrong in the whole bunch. Now, I'm not saying that you won't be judged for things you did wrong, or that I won't be judged for things you did wrong. That'd be false. But I think we need to realize that judgment in large measure is going to be about Christian living. Day to day, doing what's right. And that's what James gets into right here. It's what you do that's right. You cannot leave God out of your plans. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. Anita's bringing up some of her family members. I won't narrow it down quite that much. That's up to you to narrow it down like that. But she's saying that they'll be talking about something, and they'll say, I didn't do anything. Well, that could be a bad answer. I didn't do anything. Well, you didn't do anything. Now just think about it this way at your home. There's a pan of grease on the stove, and whoever was doing the cooking got drawn away by something, and the pan catches on fire. The house burns down, and you say, well, I didn't do anything. Well, where are you going to live? Could you have done something and maybe stopped this thing? Yeah, you could have. Well, life is like that, and we need to see that as we go along. Next week, pick up with chapter 5. We got 2 weeks to finish. We should be able to do that. So be ready just go ahead and read the whole chapter, and we'll proceed. Thank you.